The next step, luckily, is almost exactly the same, so we can get that more cemented in everyone's head. We're going to be loading older tweets instead this time. So exactly the same in the opposite direction. So this should go fairly quickly. So in this case, instead of adding a header view, we want to add a footer view that, when clicked, loads the tweets that are older than the tweet that is last in the list currently. So the way we'll do that, we will get the ID of the last tweet and then subtract one to sort of hack in the way that Twitter loads older tweets. It has a max ID parameter, so that's not saying it's not really saying tweets that are less than this ID exclusive. It's saying that there are get the tweets that are less than this ID inclusive. So we have to subtract one because that otherwise we would get a duplicate. Um, we wouldn't want to load the same tweet twice, so we have to subtract one there. Then we say load home timeline with the paging object again, and instead of saying that we want tweets newer than a certain ID, we say that we want tweets older than a certain ID, and then we append those tweets at the end of the list and go through the same dance where we tell the adapter to load those in and then notify the list that it's changed. So let's go look at the code. I will close up this project and then open up step 3 and go to status list activity. So now you can see on line 25 that I've added a new reference to the footer view to a load more list item, which is the same type of guy as the header view. If I hit F3 on this class, you'll remember that I have a way to show footer text. So I can just reuse this view for the header or the footer, and I don't have to make a different view. And then let's see where to start. I think in load home timeline, when I call set load more views, is kind of where we started last time. So on line 62, when the timeline is loaded, I say set load more views, and oops, not F2. I want to hit F3 here. That will take us down to line 102 through 109, which is where I get a reference to now a footer view, which is inflated from the same layout as the header view. And I tell that footer view to show the footer text, and then on line 108, I say to the list view to add a footer view and then pass in that view. So now there's a footer and a header on the list. So the next interesting things that happen, I think, are kicked off when a list item is clicked. So on line 71 of status list activity, now I just have an extra condition in here. If the view that was clicked is the footer view, then I want to show progress on the footer view and then load older tweets instead of showing progress on the header view and loading newer tweets. So let's go to load older tweets. I'll hit F3 here on line 77. The load older tweets, again, since we're not doing this on a thread, it doesn't matter when I hide progress, I guess, so I put that in a weird order there, but that'll get cleaned up next step. And then in this case, I'm just going to get a list of statuses that come from the home timeline, but like I said, I'm going to pass a paging object where it sort of uses the builder pattern again, create a new paging object, and then pass in a max ID of the adapter's last ID minus 1, because that's an inclusive load. And then once I have that list of tweets, I'll say to the adapter to append older tweets. So let me hop into there by hitting F3 here. Appending older tweets is pretty much the same as appending newer tweets, except instead of calling insert, as I do for newer tweets, which will put objects at a specific index in the array, and in this case the index is 0, so at the beginning we can just call add, and that puts them at the end of the array. So the array list that I have so far, I'll just add each newer tweet, and those will get put at the end of the array or at the later positions in the array, so they'll be shown up down the page. And again, I need to set the notifications to false and then notify that the data set is changed at the end. Okay, I think that should make sense to everybody. Let's see it in action. I think I need to go here and say run as an Android application, and we'll see that loading over here. So now it'll pretty much work the same way when the statuses are all loaded. I'm not going to see the header, but I will see as I scroll down to the bottom the footer, and it will load older tweets, and I don't have to worry about updating Twitter at all. When I click load older tweets, it will pop in some new tweets from here on down. So this is the one that was the earliest before, and now I have a whole nother page worth here at the bottom of my list, and now I've loaded older tweets. And then the footer ends up again at the bottom as a way to load even older tweets. So you can keep on loading here until the memory runs out, basically. Okay, is there anything else we want to look at? I think one extra thing maybe, I guess the only difference between loading newer tweets and older tweets is that at the end on line 86, I set the selection to 1, and I don't want to do that when I load older tweets. I just want to let it sit where it was in the list. So, pretty simple, kind of a way to cement in the way we're doing all of this work of loading newer tweets or older tweets. Pretty much works the same way for older. But let me load older tweets one more time because I want to show you something that's important. So again, just as I did when I load newer tweets up here at the top, I'm showing progress on this on the header view, so that I should see the progress indicator show up, but it's not. And the same way here, when I load older tweets, it just sort of sits there selected. It doesn't show the progress until the work is done, and then the tweets get appended, and then the footer is back at the bottom. So we're not actually seeing that progress. And the reason for that is the summary that I want you to take away, although everything is pretty much the same. Let's just focus on the fact that when that long-running task, that network operation of loading those tweets is happening, it's running on the same thread as the UI, unless we explicitly put it on another thread. And there's nothing that we can see on the UI during that because the work is all taken up by the network operation. So it causes our UI to become unresponsive, which is not good. So it makes the user lose trust that our application is not just freezing up every once in a while. It's like, what's going on here? I don't know what's going on. Oh, okay, now I see that everything's loaded. I couldn't even use the UI. In fact, here, let me go back to the emulator. When I click load older tweets, I try to scroll in the list, and I can't until everything's done. See, so the UI is completely unresponsive while we're doing that network operation. So that's something I want you to keep in mind as kind of a summary for this step. Are there any questions about what we went through for this step, or shall we go talk about threads?
Yep, I had one question. One person asked, when you click load older tweets, is the footer getting deleted and then reinserted, or is it just how is it getting moved to the bottom of the new set of tweets?
It just gets moved to the bottom, so that's completely taken care of by Android, by the list.
Cool. All right, that was my only question. Ruth has a question.
Some people are wondering how to limit the number of tweets that you get back or filter them. And what about if the list becomes too large? Is there any out-of-memory exception that needs to be caught?
So the first question was, can you filter the tweets? Yeah, with Twitter4j, there's a lot of different options you have for loading different page sizes, loading different things with paging. And I'll just point you to the API docs for Twitter4j at, I think, twitter4j.org. You can go look at different examples there. And as for running out of memory, you can't really recover from that exception. And that exception will be thrown at some point. We would run out of memory. Luckily, there's not too much memory that's being taken up by any tweets. So that'll take a while for the app to run out of memory because we're not creating, remember, because the list view is recycling the individual list items, we're not actually creating new views for every tweet that we load. We just have the few K or whatever in memory for each tweet. But still, at some point, you would run out of memory. But the way to deal with that is not to catch an exception, because there's not really a way to recover from your app running out of memory when it comes to the point where it throws an exception. There is a warning that will be passed along to either your application. Remember, we extended. Here, let me go to the code. We extended the application to have OTweet application be the application class that's constructed, and there is a method on this that we can override here. So if I go to source, override or implement methods on low memory, you can see that this method is called on the application when the app runs out of memory. And I think you can get a callback on each individual activity too. And we would want to do something like, I don't know, we could either just say, hey user, you run out of memory because you've loaded a lot of tweets. Do you want to just kind of cut down on all the tweets that you see? And I don't know, you could show just the page that they're on and get rid of tweets on either side of that or something. Or you could completely just start from scratch. I don't know what the right thing to do for the user would be, but you can take some sort of action when one of those methods is called.